Hello, and welcome to another gentle journey on Sleepy Professor Stories. You arrive here at a pace that feels unhurried, as if time itself has agreed to slow down for a while. Tonight, your attention drifts toward ancient rare animals, quiet witnesses of deep time who lived without urgency and adapted patiently to the world around them. These creatures did not rush or compete loudly. They existed within long natural rhythms, becoming part of Earth's story without ever needing to announce themselves. This is not a journey filled with danger or excitement. It is a calm observation, a soft exploration of lives that unfolded slowly and often faded just as gently. You are not expected to remember names or details. You can simply listen, allowing images to appear and dissolve, knowing that understanding is optional and rest is always welcome. If these peaceful explorations feel comforting to you, you may choose to like or subscribe, helping others find their way to calm science as well. And if that thought feels unnecessary right now, that is perfectly fine. There is nothing here that requires a decision. As you settle in, there is nothing you need to do. Your breathing can remain natural and unforced. Shoulders may soften. The muscles of your face can gently release. You do not need to stay alert, and you do not need to follow every idea. Sleep is welcome at any moment, and listening can fade naturally into rest. These ancient animals lived far beyond human schedules, and this journey follows their pace. Nothing is rushed, nothing is demanded. The night can carry you forward quietly, one slow breath at a time. Let's begin. As the sense of time gently widens, your attention drifts toward the first quiet moments when ancient life moves slowly into view, without urgency or sound. You begin by stepping into a world where time feels wide and generous, where life unfolds without hurry. The land does not feel crowded with events, and the air itself seems patient. In this distant past, ancient animals move through their days without urgency, guided by rhythms so steady that nothing feels rushed or delayed. You notice how movement here is calm rather than reactive. Creatures do not sprint unless necessary, and even then, motion is measured and brief. Much of life happens slowly through grazing, drifting, resting, and waiting. Energy is conserved, not wasted, and the world feels balanced because of it. Many ancient animals grow and change at a pace that feels almost still. Their bodies develop over long spans of time, shaped by environment rather than competition. Adaptation happens quietly, generation after generation, without sudden leaps or dramatic shifts. As you imagine this, your own thoughts begin to slow. There is nothing here that requires fast decisions or constant alertness. Life exists because conditions allow it, not because it pushes itself forward. Predators and prey share the landscape without constant tension. Encounters are infrequent, and when they occur, they resolve quickly. Much of the time, animals remain unaware of one another, each following familiar paths shaped by habit and environment. The absence of urgency creates space. Long periods pass where nothing remarkable happens, and this is not seen as empty time. It is simply time being itself, unfolding quietly. You may picture vast plains, shallow seas, or forested lowlands where ancient animals move slowly through familiar routes. The land feels open, not demanding attention, allowing life to blend into it naturally. Many of these creatures rely on repetition rather than speed. Daily patterns repeat gently, providing predictability that supports rest. Feeding happens at certain times. Movement follows light and temperature. Rest arrives naturally when conditions shift. As your breathing remains steady, this predictability feels comforting. Nothing unexpected presses in. The future does not feel urgent because the present is sufficient. Ancient animals often possessed bodies built for endurance rather than speed. Thick limbs, broad shapes, and steady postures allow them to move efficiently without haste. Their design reflects a world where patience matters more than reaction. Even smaller creatures adopt this calm approach. They hide, wait, and move subtly, blending into surroundings rather than escaping suddenly. Survival depends on fitting in, not standing out. You may sense how little noise fills this world. Sounds are muted, carried softly by air or water. Silence is common, broken only by natural rhythms rather than alarm. Life here does not announce itself. It exists quietly, shaped by long-term conditions that change slowly enough to allow adaptation without stress. As time passes, some species flourish, others fade, but this happens gradually. No single moment defines success or failure. Life responds to shifts in climate, geography, and resources with patience rather than resistance. This patience allows ecosystems to remain stable for long periods. Relationships between animals and their environments settle into balance, maintained through repetition rather than control. You may imagine ancient seas where rare animals drift through warm waters, buoyed by currents rather than effort. Their movement feels like floating rather than swimming, guided by gentle forces. On land, ancient animals often pause for long stretches, conserving energy. Rest is not a break from life. It is a core part of it. This rhythm encourages a slower sense of time. Days are not measured by tasks, but by light, temperature, and comfort. When conditions are favorable, activity happens. When they are not, rest follows. You may notice how this mirrors natural sleep. The body rests when it needs to, without justification or guilt. Ancient life follows this instinct without question. Many animals grow slowly, reaching maturity over long periods. This slow development allows bodies to adjust carefully to their surroundings, reducing strain. The idea of urgency feels distant here. There is no need to rush growth or reproduction. Everything happens when conditions align. As awareness drifts, the distinction between action and rest becomes softer. Life flows between the two without sharp boundaries. Even environmental changes unfold gradually. Shifts in temperature or moisture happen over long spans, giving life time to respond without panic. This gentle pace reduces conflict. Competition exists, but it is subdued, managed by separation and timing rather than confrontation. You may imagine long migrations that take place slowly, over seasons rather than days. Movement becomes part of life's rhythm rather than a response to threat. Ancient animals often return to the same places repeatedly, trusting landscapes that have remained stable for generations. Familiarity replaces urgency. This trust creates calm. Knowing that resources will return allows life to wait rather than chase. As you settle into this image, your body may respond with relaxation. Muscles soften when urgency fades. Breathing deepens naturally. There is nothing you need to remember from this time. The feeling of slowness is enough to carry forward. Ancient life teaches that survival does not require constant effort. It requires alignment with conditions and patience with time. You may sense how different this feels from modern pace. Here, nothing competes for attention. Life unfolds quietly, without interruption. This quiet allows rare animals to exist without being noticed, living full lives without leaving dramatic traces. Even extinction, when it comes, happens gradually. Species fade as conditions shift, replaced by others that adapt more easily. No single moment defines the end. This gradual fading does not feel tragic. It feels like part of a continuous flow where life reshapes itself gently. As awareness continues to drift, the idea of deep time becomes soothing. Long spans feel manageable when nothing urgent happens within them. Ancient animals live within this deep time effortlessly. They do not perceive duration the way you do. They simply exist within it. You are not required to follow these thoughts closely. They are meant to soften rather than engage. As the chapter settles, the sense of calm rhythm remains. Life moved more slowly then, and that slowness allowed balance to form naturally. You may feel ready to continue drifting into this world where time stretches and urgency dissolves. And as this unhurried rhythm continues, your attention drifts gently toward the quiet traces these ancient lives leave behind, resting patiently within stone and earth. You drift into a quieter way of knowing now, one where life is not seen moving, but resting. Here, ancient animals are known only through stone, through gentle impressions left behind without intention. Fossils are not discoveries in this space. They are quiet traces, patiently waiting, held by the earth without urgency. Long ago, these animals lived their lives without any sense of being recorded. They walked, swam, rested, and fed without knowing that their forms would one day remain. When they settled into the ground, it was not an ending marked by drama. It was simply another moment in the slow rhythm of time. Stone becomes a kind of memory, not because it chooses to remember, but because it holds what settles within it. Bones sink into soft sediment. Shells rest on ancient seafloors. Impressions form where bodies once touched the ground. Everything happens gently, shaped by weight and time rather than force. As you imagine this, the idea of preservation feels calm rather than precise. Fossils do not capture movement or sound. They capture presence, a curve of bone, the outline of a fin, the faint pattern of scales pressed into mud that would later become rock. These traces remain because the conditions allow them to remain. Sediment covers them slowly, protecting them from disturbance. Layer after layer settles above, sealing the moment in quiet darkness. There is no rush to harden. Time does the work patiently. You may notice how different this feels from memory in the mind. Fossils do not recall or revisit. They simply exist, unchanged, while everything around them shifts. They are not reminders. They are continuations. The animals themselves never knew this would happen. They did not leave marks to be remembered. Their lives were complete without witnesses. This absence of intention gives fossils their softness. Nothing was meant to last, yet something does. As awareness drifts, the stone begins to feel like a gentle resting place rather than a container. The earth does not trap these remains. It receives them, allowing them to settle into its slow processes. Water plays a quiet role here. Ancient seas and rivers carry fine particles that blanket resting bodies. These particles fill spaces gently, preserving shape without pressure. Over time, minerals replace organic material, maintaining form while changing substance. This replacement happens slowly enough that nothing collapses. The structure remains stable as a transformation unfolds. Bone becomes stone, not through violence, but through gradual exchange. You might imagine a skeleton resting beneath shallow water, covered grain by grain. Light fades, movement ceases. The world above continues unaware. Below, a record forms quietly. Many fossils are incomplete, and this feels fitting. Not everything needs to be whole to be meaningful. Fragments tell enough of a story. A single tooth, a section of shell, a partial imprint can speak softly of a life that once existed. The incompleteness itself feels restful. There is no pressure to reconstruct everything. Gaps are allowed. Silence is allowed. As time passes, layers above grow heavier, pressing gently. Sediment hardens into rock. The fossil becomes part of the Earth's structure, no longer separate from it. Millions of years may pass before these traces return to light, and even then, their emergence is gradual. Erosion removes material slowly. Water, wind, and ice expose fragments without haste. When fossils appear at the surface, it is not because the Earth reveals them suddenly. It is because the surface itself has moved, lowered, softened. What was once deep simply becomes shallow over time. You are not asked to imagine the moment of discovery. That moment belongs to another pace. Here, the focus remains on the long rest before it. These ancient animals lived without knowing they would be studied or named. Their lives mattered because they lived them, not because they left evidence. This idea may feel comforting. Existence does not need to be recorded to be complete. Presence alone is enough. Fossils remind you that life continues even when unseen. The Earth holds countless traces that may never surface, and this does not lessen their reality. As you breathe, the thought of hidden histories becomes soothing. Not everything needs to be known. Much can remain quietly held. Stone does not favor one species over another. It preserves whatever conditions allow without judgment or preference. Small creatures and large ones rest side by side, each equally part of the Earth's memory. Some fossils form in environments so calm that even delicate structures remain. Fine ridges, soft impressions, subtle patterns survive because nothing disturbed them. Stillness becomes preservation. You may imagine ancient mudflats where small animals walked briefly, leaving tracks that hardened under the sun, then settled beneath new layers. These footprints remain long after the walkers are gone. Tracks feel especially gentle. They show movement without showing the mover. A suggestion of life passing through, without revealing what came before or after. This fleeting quality feels aligned with rest. Moments pass, yet something of them remains softly. Fossils do not capture sound, color, or behavior. They offer shape and presence, leaving imagination free to wander without urgency. As awareness drifts, the idea of deep time becomes less abstract. It feels like a long pause rather than a stretch. Ancient animals rest within this pause, unchanged, while the world above them transforms countless times. Mountains rise and lower, seas advance and retreat. Climates shift slowly. Through all of this, the fossil remains where it settled, patient and undisturbed. You may sense how grounding this is. Change happens around stillness, not instead of it. When fossils are eventually uncovered, they do not rush to tell their story. They remain quiet, offering information only when carefully observed. Even then, much is left unknown. The Earth does not give up its memories easily, and this reluctance feels kind rather than secretive. As your thoughts soften, you may notice that knowing less can be restful. Certainty is not required here. Fossils connect present awareness to lives that existed without concern for the future. This connection does not demand understanding. It simply invites reflection. The animals preserved in stone did not strive to be rare or ancient. They lived within their time naturally, shaped by environments that no longer exist. This disappearance feels gentle rather than tragic. Conditions changed, life adjusted elsewhere, the flow continued. Stone carries this truth quietly. It does not mourn, it holds. As erosion continues its work, some fossils return to light briefly, then weather away again. Exposure is temporary, rest is the longest state. You may imagine a fossil appearing on a cliff face, then slowly breaking down, returning to sediment. Even records are not permanent, and that impermanence feels calm. Nothing needs to last forever to have mattered. As the chapter settles, the sense of quiet preservation remains. Life leaves traces not to be remembered, but because it existed. You are allowed to rest with this idea. Being does not require recognition. Ancient animals known only through stone feel close now, not as subjects, but as quiet companions in deep time. Their presence does not ask for attention. It simply remains. And as these silent traces continue to rest within the earth, your attention drifts gently toward ancient waters where rare creatures once moved slowly through calm, waiting seas. You drift now into an ocean that feels wider than thought, warm and unhurried, spreading calmly beneath an ancient sky. These waters do not churn or rush. They move with a slow, steady confidence, shaped by tides that rise and fall without drama. Within this gentle expanse, rare animals move as part of the water itself, not cutting through it, but yielding to it. In these prehistoric seas, swimming is not an act of pursuit. It is a form of rest in motion. Bodies are shaped to glide rather than chase, to float rather than strain. Fins extend softly, tails move with measured sweeps, and buoyancy does much of the work. Life here understands that effort can be minimal and still effective. You may imagine sunlight filtering down through clear water, dimming gradually as depth increases. Colors soften, sound disappears. Everything becomes slower, quieter, more contained. Rare swimmers occupy this space without urgency, rising and sinking gently as currents guide them. These animals do not rely on speed to survive. Many feed by filtering tiny organisms from the water or by grazing slowly along the seafloor. Their nourishment comes steadily without competition or haste. The ocean provides in abundance when patience is practiced. As you breathe slowly, this sense of effortless support feels familiar. Water carries weight. It holds bodies gently, allowing movement without strain. Ancient swimmers trust this support completely, letting the sea do what it does best. Their forms reflect this trust. Broad surfaces increase lift. Streamlined shapes reduce resistance. Nothing is designed for sudden bursts. Everything favors endurance and calm consistency. Some of these creatures grow large, but their size does not make them aggressive. It makes them stable. Large bodies move with inertia that smooths motion, preventing quick changes and encouraging steady paths. The ocean feels calmer around them. Others remain small and delicate, drifting with planktonic life, barely moving at all. Their existence depends on the slow circulation of water rather than active swimming. They live suspended in motion without direction. The sea floor itself feels peaceful. Soft sediments settle continuously, disturbed only by gentle movements. Rare animals rest here, blending into the landscape, their presence subtle and unobtrusive. You may imagine an ancient reef, not bustling, but calm. Structures grow slowly upward. Creatures move between them with care, conserving energy. Nothing feels crowded. Space is plentiful. Temperature in these seas changes gradually. Warm currents spread comfort evenly, while cooler depths offer stability. Rare swimmers move between layers without shock, adapting to gentle gradients rather than extremes. As awareness drifts, the idea of time becomes fluid. Days and nights pass without sharp transitions. Light fades slowly. Darkness arrives softly. Life responds by resting rather than reacting. Many ancient swimmers possess long lifespans, growing and aging gradually. Their lives are measured not by rapid change, but by continuity. Each day resembles the last enough to feel safe. You may notice how this predictability eases tension. When the environment remains stable, there is little need for alertness. Rare swimmers exist in a state of quiet readiness, rather than constant vigilance. The ocean itself participates in this calm. Currents flow steadily, carrying nutrients across vast distances. Nothing is wasted. Material circulates patiently, supporting life without interruption. Some animals rely entirely on these currents, drifting across seas without choosing direction. Their journey is determined by water movement rather than intention. This surrender feels peaceful rather than helpless. Others follow familiar routes, guided by temperature, depth, and light. These paths repeat over long periods, creating rhythms that feel dependable and reassuring. Predation exists here, but it is subdued. Encounters are infrequent. Energy is conserved. When interactions happen, they resolve quickly, without prolonged struggle. This restraint supports balance. Populations remain stable. Ecosystems endure without collapse. Rare animals persist because nothing pushes them beyond their limits. As you imagine these seas, your own thoughts may begin to float. Attention drifts without needing to focus. The imagery carries you gently, like water carrying a resting body. Ancient oceans also buffer change. When conditions shift, they do so gradually. Temperature changes spread slowly. Chemical balances adjust over long spans. Life has time to respond. This patience reduces stress. Rare swimmers do not need to adapt suddenly. Their bodies and behaviors adjust over generations, guided by slow environmental cues. You may sense how different this feels from rapid change. Here, nothing demands immediate response. The future arrives slowly enough to be met with calm adaptation. The ocean floor records this slowness. Layers of sediment accumulate gently, preserving traces of life without disturbance. Shells, skeletons, and impressions settle quietly, becoming part of the seafloor. These records form without intention. Animals do not leave marks to be remembered. They simply rest, and the earth holds what rests within it. As awareness continues to drift, the boundary between movement and stillness blurs. Swimming becomes a form of floating. Floating becomes a form of resting. Rare swimmers often pause entirely, suspending movement while remaining buoyant. This stillness is not inactivity. It is efficiency, allowing energy to be conserved. Light pulses gently through the water, changing with depth and time of day. Shadows move slowly. The visual environment remains soft, encouraging calm perception. Sound is minimal. Vibrations travel through water smoothly, without sharpness. Silence dominates, broken only by subtle shifts. You may feel how this quiet encourages internal quiet as well. Thoughts slow when external stimulation remains gentle. Ancient oceans extend far beyond the horizon, creating a sense of openness without exposure. Water surrounds and supports, and offering security rather than vulnerability. Rare swimmers trust this enclosure. They do not seek shelter urgently. The ocean itself is shelter enough. As time passes, some of these animals fade from existence as conditions change. This fading happens gradually, without catastrophe. Populations diminish quietly, replaced by others better suited to new conditions. This transition does not feel like loss. It feels like continuation. Life reshapes itself slowly, maintaining balance even as forms change. You may imagine a rare swimmer drifting through warm water, unaware that it belongs to a lineage that will one day end. Its life is complete regardless. This idea may feel comforting. Meaning does not require permanence. Presence alone is sufficient. Ancient oceans hold countless such lives, lived fully and then released back into the flow. The water does not mark their passing. It continues calmly. As awareness softens further, the sense of depth increases. The surface fades. Only gentle motion remains. Your breathing may align with this rhythm, slow and steady, rising and falling like tides. There is nothing you need to remember from these waters. The feeling of buoyancy is enough. Rare swimmers teach that survival can be quiet, that movement can be restful, and that time can be expansive without pressure. The ocean supports this lesson by remaining patient, vast, and forgiving. As the chapter settles, the imagery of drifting bodies and warm currents lingers, encouraging rest rather than thought. You may feel ready to drift further, carried by the same calm that guided ancient swimmers through their days. And as these warm waters continue their gentle circulation, your attention drifts toward the quiet moment when life first begins to explore the edges of land without haste or fear. You arrive at a quiet threshold in Earth's story where water no longer holds everything and land begins to invite life softly. The shoreline feels calm rather than dramatic. There is no sudden crossing, no bold leap forward. Life approaches land the way a resting body shifts position, slowly and carefully, responding to comfort and possibility. Early animals do not rush onto solid ground. They linger at the edges, spending time where water and land meet. Shallow pools, muddy banks, and flooded plains become places of gentle experimentation. Here, movement is cautious, guided by familiarity rather than ambition. Bodies adapt gradually to this new surface. Fins become sturdier. Limbs begin to support weight for short moments. Nothing changes all at once. Each small adjustment builds on the last, allowing balance to form naturally. As you imagine these first gentle walkers, their movement feels tentative but calm. They pause often. They rest. They return to water when needed. Land is not a replacement for the sea, but an extension of it, offering new textures and temperatures without removing safety. Breathing itself changes slowly. Air enters bodies that once relied on water alone. This transition happens without urgency, supported by environments rich in moisture. Early land does not feel dry or harsh. It feels soft and forgiving. You may picture wide, humid landscapes where water still pools everywhere. Plants grow low and dense, holding moisture close to the ground. The air feels thick, carrying warmth evenly. Life is not exposed here. It is cradled. Movement on land requires new rhythms. Steps are shorter. Balance is practiced repeatedly. Early animals do not travel far. They explore nearby spaces, learning what feels stable and what feels uncertain. There is no sense of conquest in this exploration. It feels more like curiosity mixed with caution. Life tests the land gently, retreating when needed, advancing only when comfort allows. As your breathing remains slow, this gradual adaptation feels soothing. Nothing is forced. Bodies respond to opportunity rather than pressure. Food sources on land are simple and abundant. Early plants and small organisms offer nourishment without competition. Feeding happens calmly, without the need for pursuit. Rest becomes just as important as movement. Early land animals pause frequently, conserving energy and allowing their bodies to adjust. Stillness is part of learning. You may notice how this mirrors learning itself. New environments are best approached slowly, with patience and rest woven between attempts. The ground beneath these animals feels uneven but soft. Mud, sand, and decaying plant matter cushion movement. Sharp surfaces are rare. The land does not challenge harshly. Limbs strengthen gradually through repeated use. Muscles adjust to gravity over time, responding to weight without strain. Bones adapt quietly, becoming more supportive with each generation. As awareness drifts, the idea of time expands. These changes unfold over long spans, not moments. There is no single first step that defines success. There are countless small steps, each equally gentle. Early walkers do not travel alone. Many animals share these environments, each adapting at its own pace. Paths overlap without conflict. Space feels generous. The absence of urgency reduces danger. Encounters between animals are infrequent and brief. Energy is conserved rather than spent on avoidance or aggression. You may imagine a creature lifting itself slightly from the water, resting on land for a short while, then easing back into a shallow pool. This back and forth feels natural, unremarkable. Land offers new sensations. Temperature changes feel different outside water. Light reaches bodies more directly. Gravity presses differently. These sensations are noticed slowly, without alarm. Adaptation happens through repetition. Returning to land again and again allows familiarity to grow. What once felt uncertain becomes comfortable. As your thoughts soften, the image of gentle exploration may feel deeply calming. Nothing here demands bravery. Curiosity is enough. Early land environments remain closely tied to water. Rivers overflow regularly. Tides reach far inland. Moisture remains abundant. Life does not feel separated from its origins. This closeness allows gradual change. Animals never feel fully cut off from safety. Retreat is always possible. You may sense how important this safety is for rest. Knowing that retreat is possible allows exploration without fear. Plants play a quiet role here as well. They stabilize soil, hold moisture, and create shade. Their presence makes land more inviting, offering structure without rigidity. Early animals move among these plants gently, brushing past stems and leaves rather than pushing through resistance. Movement remains fluid. As time passes, some animals spend longer periods on land. Others continue to rely heavily on water. There is no correct path. Multiple strategies coexist peacefully. This diversity supports balance. Ecosystems form gradually, shaped by cooperation rather than competition. You may notice how silent this world feels. Sounds are soft and spread out. Nothing startles suddenly. Quiet dominates. This quiet encourages internal quiet as well. Thoughts slow when the environment remains gentle. Breathing becomes more efficient over time. Lungs adapt slowly. Bodies learn to exchange gases comfortably in air. This process unfolds without strain. Early land animals do not need to travel far. Resources are close. Energy conservation remains a priority. As awareness drifts further, now the image of patient learning becomes comforting. The land does not require mastery. It invites familiarity. Early footsteps leave faint impressions in soft ground. These marks are temporary, fading with moisture and time. Movement does not scar the land. It brushes past. You may imagine watching these impressions disappear, knowing they serve their purpose briefly and then return to stillness. The idea of impermanence feels gentle here. Nothing needs to last to be meaningful. Over generations, bodies adjust more fully to land. Limbs strengthen, skin adapts. Sensory systems change slowly, responding to new cues. These adaptations are not rushed. They occur because time allows them to occur. As your breathing deepens, the pace of this story may feel increasingly restful. There is no climax to anticipate, only continuity. Early walkers do not leave water behind completely. Many remain amphibious, comfortable in both worlds. This flexibility feels peaceful rather than uncertain. You may sense how balance replaces urgency. Life does not need to choose one environment over another immediately. The land itself remains welcoming. It does not harden suddenly. It continues to offer softness, moisture, and warmth. As this chapter settles, the image of tentative steps lingers. Each step is small, deliberate, and unhurried. You are not asked to remember specific forms or names. The feeling of gentle adaptation is enough. Early life approaches land the way the mind approaches rest, gradually, with pauses, trusting comfort to grow naturally. And as these careful steps continue to find their balance, your attention drifts toward the presence of rare giants who move just as patiently, carrying calm strength across ancient landscapes. You now find yourself in the presence of size that feels calming rather than overwhelming. These ancient giants do not hurry. Their bodies are large, steady, and deliberate, shaped by a world where speed is unnecessary. Nothing about them feels aggressive or urgent. Their size brings patience, not power. When these animals move, the ground seems to accept them quietly. Each step is placed with care, guided by balance rather than force. Movement is economical, never wasted. Muscles engage slowly, supporting weight without strain, and then release again into rest. Large bodies change how time is experienced. For these giants, quick reactions are not essential. Their mass carries momentum that smooths motion, preventing sudden changes. Turning takes time. Stopping takes time. This slowness is not a weakness. It is a natural rhythm. You may imagine a vast plain where one of these animals moves across the landscape without destination. There is no need to hurry toward food or shelter. Resources are abundant enough to allow calm grazing and long pauses between movements. Feeding itself is unhurried. These giants often rely on steady consumption rather than pursuit. Mouths gather plant matter slowly. Digestion takes time, unfolding gradually within large bodies designed to process food efficiently. As you breathe slowly, the image of long digestion and steady nourishment feels grounding. Nothing needs to be completed quickly. The body takes what it needs over time. Their size also creates safety without confrontation. Few animals challenge them, not because they are aggressive, but because they are stable. Presence alone is enough to discourage conflict. This allows their lives to remain quiet. Rest occupies much of their day. Large animals lie down or stand still for long periods, conserving energy. Stillness is not inactivity. It is a state of readiness without urgency. You may notice how this stillness feels reassuring. Nothing is about to happen suddenly. The environment feels predictable and calm. These giants often move along familiar routes, returning to the same feeding areas repeatedly. Memory is carried in the landscape rather than the mind. Paths are learned through repetition, not planning. Their bodies are built to last. Bones are thick, joints are strong, and growth happens slowly. Reaching full size takes many years, allowing structures to strengthen gradually. This slow growth encourages patience. There is no pressure to mature quickly. Time is allowed to do its work. You may sense how this contrasts with smaller, faster animals. Here, survival depends on endurance and consistency rather than speed or alertness. Large size also influences temperature regulation. Big bodies retain heat well, reducing the need for constant movement. Energy is conserved naturally. As awareness drifts, the idea of conserving energy feels comforting. Rest is not something earned. It is part of existence. Rare giants often live long lives. Longevity allows them to experience many seasons, many cycles of growth and rest. Their lives are not compressed. They unfold slowly. This long lifespan reduces urgency. There is time to learn landscapes thoroughly, time to adapt gently to changes in environment. You may imagine these animals standing quietly during changing weather, allowing rain or sun to pass without reaction. Their bodies are adapted to endure variation calmly. Movement occurs when needed, not when pressured. Hunger, comfort, and temperature guide action rather than fear. This calm approach supports stable ecosystems. Giants influence their environments simply by being present. Their movement shapes vegetation slowly. Their feeding patterns create openings that allow new growth. These changes happen gradually, without disruption. The land adjusts over long periods, maintaining balance. You may notice how quiet this influence feels. There is no sudden transformation. Everything unfolds at a pace that feels almost invisible. As thoughts slow, the idea of gentle impact becomes soothing. Change does not need to be dramatic to be meaningful. Large ancient animals often travel in small groups or alone. Social interactions are limited and calm. Encounters are brief, based on familiarity rather than competition. Communication, when it occurs, is subtle. Low sounds travel through ground or air without urgency. Silence remains dominant. You may imagine the deep quiet of a landscape shaped by such beings. Sounds are few. Movement is rare. Stillness fills most of the day. This stillness encourages rest not only for the giants, but for everything around them. Smaller animals adjust their behavior calmly, moving aside rather than fleeing. As awareness drifts further, the concept of dominance fades. Size does not create chaos. It creates stability. Even when these giants encounter danger, their response is measured. They do not panic. They assess slowly, responding only if necessary. This restraint conserves energy and reduces stress. Life remains balanced because reactions are proportional rather than exaggerated. You may sense how this mirrors deep rest. When urgency fades, the body responds calmly to stimuli, conserving strength. Rare giants often occupy niches that change little over time. Their environments remain stable enough to support long-term presence. When conditions do change, adaptation happens slowly. Migration may occur over long periods. Body size may shift gradually across generations. Nothing about this feels rushed. Evolution itself moves patiently here, guided by steady conditions rather than sudden pressure. As you breathe, the idea of patience embodied in physical form becomes tangible. These animals carry time within their bodies. Their presence also affects the pace of life around them. Landscapes shaped by giants feel slower, more open, less crowded. Paths widen gradually. Vegetation patterns change slowly. Everything adjusts without disruption. You may imagine standing near one of these animals, feeling its warmth, hearing its slow breathing. The moment feels grounded, unhurried. There is no sense of being late. Time stretches comfortably around the interaction. These giants do not seek attention. They exist fully without display. Their rarity does not make them special in their own experience. They simply live. This lack of self-awareness feels peaceful. Existence does not require acknowledgement. As awareness continues to soften, the idea of rarity becomes gentle. Rare does not mean fragile. It means specific, shaped by unique conditions that allow calm persistence. When these giants eventually fade from existence, it happens gradually. Populations decline as environments shift. There is no sudden disappearance. This fading feels like quiet withdrawal rather than loss. Life reshapes itself gently. You may notice how comforting this perspective is. Endings do not need to be abrupt or dramatic. The Earth accommodates change slowly, allowing systems to adjust without collapse. Rare giants leave subtle traces behind. Paths worn into land, changes in vegetation. These marks persist quietly after they are gone. Nothing about this feels incomplete. Their lives were full within their time. As your breathing remains slow, the image of deliberate movement lingers. Each step placed carefully, each pause honored. You are not required to remember specific species or shapes. The feeling of calm strength is enough. Large ancient animals teach that power can be quiet, that size can bring patience, and that movement can be restful. Their presence slows the world around them simply by existing. As the chapter settles, the sense of steady calm remains, encouraging further rest. Thoughts may drift now, carried by the rhythm of slow steps and long pauses. You may feel ready to continue into the quieter stories of smaller, elusive creatures that lived alongside these giants, unnoticed but complete. And as these rare giants continue their patient journey across ancient land, your attention drifts toward the small, elusive lives that moved quietly in their shadow without ever needing to hurry. Your attention now settles closer to the ground, where life moves softly and often unseen. These small creatures of deep time do not announce themselves. They exist quietly, shaped by patience rather than force, surviving by remaining unnoticed. Their lives unfold in narrow spaces, beneath leaves, within burrows, or along shaded edges of ancient landscapes. While larger animals shape the land through presence, these smaller beings shape it through subtle interaction. Their movements are careful and light. Every step is measured, guided by awareness rather than urgency. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is rushed. Small bodies experience the world differently. Temperature changes are felt more quickly, encouraging rest during harsh conditions and gentle activity during calm moments. Movement happens when the environment feels safe enough to allow it. You may imagine a quiet forest floor where leaves rest undisturbed for long stretches of time. Beneath them, life continues at a pace so slow it almost feels still. These creatures pause often, listening more than moving. Survival here depends on blending in rather than standing out. Colors match bark, soil, or stone. Patterns break up outlines, allowing bodies to disappear into the background. Nothing draws attention. Safety lies in subtlety. Feeding is deliberate and unhurried. Small mouths gather seeds, insects, or plant matter slowly, pausing often between bites. Energy is conserved through restraint rather than abundance. Digestion unfolds gradually, allowing nutrients to be absorbed efficiently. There is no pressure to consume more than necessary. Balance is maintained through moderation. As you breathe slowly, this rhythm of careful nourishment feels grounding. Nothing needs to be gathered all at once. Enough arrives over time. Many of these creatures live alone or in very small groups. Social interactions are brief and gentle, often limited to moments of reproduction or shared shelter. Silence remains the dominant state. Communication, when it occurs, is subtle. Soft vibrations, faint scents, or brief visual signals pass unnoticed by larger animals. These quiet exchanges maintain connection without disturbance. Movement patterns are irregular, preventing predictability. Paths change often. Stillness becomes a strategy as effective as motion. You may notice how this quiet unpredictability creates a sense of calm rather than tension. Nothing is chasing or being chased. Life unfolds without drama. Shelter is simple and temporary. Burrows, crevices, or thick vegetation provide protection. Homes are not permanent structures, but flexible spaces chosen for safety rather than comfort. These creatures rest often. Stillness conserves energy and reduces risk. Sleep comes easily when movement is minimal and surroundings remain familiar. Their senses are tuned finely to subtle changes. Vibrations in soil, shifts in air, or faint changes in light guide behavior. Awareness replaces speed. As awareness drifts, the idea of heightened sensitivity without urgency feels soothing. Attention does not require effort. It arises naturally. Small size allows access to spaces unavailable to larger animals. Narrow passages and hidden cavities become entire worlds. These micro-environments remain stable over long periods. More's within these spaces, temperature and humidity change slowly, providing consistency. Stability encourages calm living. You may imagine these creatures nestled within roots or stones, resting through long stretches of time as seasons change overhead. Reproduction happens quietly. Numbers remain low, preventing strain on resources. Growth is slow, allowing bodies to develop steadily without pressure. Young are often hidden carefully, protected through concealment rather than defense. Parenting focuses on placement rather than intervention. This gentle approach reduces stress. Life continues without confrontation. Small ancient animals often outlast larger species during environmental change. Their flexibility and low resource needs allow quiet persistence. When conditions shift, they adjust gradually. Diets change slightly. Activity patterns shift subtly. Nothing happens all at once. This adaptability feels patient rather than reactive. Change is absorbed rather than resisted. As your breathing remains slow, the idea of gentle adjustment becomes comforting. You do not need to respond immediately to every change. These creatures leave few traces behind. Footprints fade quickly, burrows collapse slowly. Fossilization is rare, making their presence easy to overlook. Yet their impact remains. Seeds spread. Soil is aerated. Insects are balanced. Quiet influence sustains ecosystems. You may sense how this unseen contribution mirrors quiet thoughts passing through the mind, shaping feeling without drawing attention. Small animals often coexist near larger ones, benefiting from disturbed vegetation or shelter created unintentionally. This relationship is indirect and peaceful. Nothing is taken forcefully. Opportunities arise naturally. As the landscape changes slowly, these creatures adapt their routes and habits. Familiarity develops through repetition rather than planning. Their memory is short-term and practical. What matters is safety in the moment. The future does not demand attention. This present-focused existence feels deeply restful. Awareness stays anchored in now. When danger appears, response is minimal. Freeze, hide, wait. Movement resumes only when safety returns. This restraint prevents panic and conserves energy. You may notice how calming this approach feels. Not every signal requires reaction. Lifespans may be short, yet experience feels complete. Each moment is lived fully within its scale. Generations pass quietly, carrying patterns forward without awareness of time's passage. Evolution occurs slowly here, guided by subtle advantages rather than dramatic shifts. As the chapter unfolds, the quiet presence of these small creatures becomes more apparent. They do not demand notice, yet they fill the world. Their existence softens the landscape, filling gaps between larger forms of life. As thoughts drift, the idea of significance changes. Importance does not require size or visibility. Small lives matter simply by being. You may imagine yourself resting now like these creatures, tucked into a safe, quiet space. Nothing expects movement. Nothing calls for effort. Breathing deepens naturally. Awareness softens. There is nothing you need to do, nothing to remember, nothing to solve. Life continues quietly around you, just as it always has. As rest settles in, attention may begin to wander toward the delicate balance between presence and absence, preparing to notice how these rare lives fade gently into the long flow of time. And as these small, elusive creatures remain quietly hidden within deep time, your thoughts begin to drift toward the gentle ways life appears and disappears without ever needing to be hurried. You arrive at a moment when the sky is not yet a place of speed. Air is wide and patient, offering support rather than challenge. Early flying animals do not rush into it. They enter slowly, learning how to rest within motion. Wings are not tools for escape or pursuit. They are extensions of balance, allowing bodies to drift rather than sprint. These first flyers do not flap constantly. They glide, stretching membranes or feathered surfaces to meet the air where it already moves. Gravity still exists, but it feels softened, shared between body and atmosphere. Descent is gentle. Direction changes are subtle. Nothing jerks or startles. You can imagine tall, ancient trees standing quietly beneath warm skies. From their branches, small bodies step outward rather than leap. The air receives them calmly. There is time to adjust, time to settle into the glide. Falling becomes a controlled, peaceful experience. Wings develop gradually over generations. They begin as surfaces for balance, for catching air during jumps or descents. Over time, these surfaces widen and strengthen, allowing longer moments aloft. Progress is slow, guided by comfort rather than ambition. Early flight does not seek distance. It seeks ease. Moving through air becomes another way to rest the body, reducing effort instead of increasing it. Muscles engage gently, conserving energy rather than burning it. You may notice how this idea softens the image of flight itself. The sky is not something to conquer, it is something to share. Bodies remain light and flexible, bones thin, Muscles distribute weight evenly. Every adjustment favors calm control. Nothing is built for sudden bursts or aggressive movement. Breathing remains steady during glides. Air flows across surfaces smoothly, creating lift without strain. Motion feels like an extension of breathing, rather than a separate effort. As your own breathing stays slow, the connection feels natural. Movement does not need force. It can arise from alignment. Early flyers often launch from elevated places. Height provides time. Time allows correction. Nothing is rushed at the beginning of a glide. Landing is careful and planned. Feet reach for bark, rock, or ground long before contact. Bodies slow naturally as air resistance increases. Touchdown is quiet. These animals learn the shape of wind through repeated gentle experience. Currents become familiar companions. Warm air lifts slightly. Cool air settles. Awareness replaces calculation. Flight paths curve softly, following terrain rather than cutting across it. Valleys guide movement. Trees shape direction. The landscape participates in every journey. You may sense how flight here feels cooperative rather than competitive. The environment offers guidance. The body responds without stress. Feathers or membranes also serve other purposes. They regulate temperature, provide shade, and assist balance even while resting. Wings are multifunctional, not specialized for speed alone. Resting positions matter. Early flyers often hang, perch, or cling, allowing wings to fold comfortably. Sleep comes easily in these positions, supported by structure rather than effort. Social behavior remains quiet. Flight is not used for display or dominance. It is practical, subtle, and efficient. Groups may glide together occasionally, but spacing remains gentle. Each body follows its own air path, avoiding collision through awareness rather than reaction. Predation pressure exists, yet responses remain calm. Height offers safety. Distance is created slowly. Panic does not guide movement. You might notice how safety here comes from perspective rather than speed. Seeing threats early allows unhurried adjustment. Reproduction adapts to flight gradually. Nests move higher. Eggs and young remain protected through placement rather than defense. Care is deliberate and calm. Young learn by observing. Short glides come first. Confidence grows through repetition rather than instruction. Mistakes are small and recoverable. The sky becomes familiar territory, not an arena. Time spent aloft increases slowly over generations. Weather influences activity gently. Calm air invites movement. Strong winds encourage rest. There is no urgency to fly in all conditions. This respect for environment maintains balance. Energy is spent only when conditions feel supportive. As you listen, the idea of waiting for the right moment feels comforting. Not everything must happen now. Flight paths often mirror daily rhythms. Morning glides, afternoon rest, evening return. Cycles repeat without pressure. Sleep occurs with wings folded close, bodies warmed by shelter. Dreams, if they exist, unfold without urgency. Evolution continues quietly. Slight changes improve efficiency. No sudden transformations occur. These early flyers may not travel far, yet their world feels expansive. Vertical space adds depth to experience without adding stress. You may imagine drifting now, supported by air, not moving quickly, simply staying aloft long enough to feel held. There is nothing you need to do, nothing you need to master. The sky carries you when you allow it. Thoughts begin to loosen, following wide arcs rather than sharp turns. As wings before urgency define this time, flight remains a gentle conversation between body and air, one that prepares the way for quieter movements yet to come. And as these early wings rest within open skies, your awareness drifts toward how patience itself becomes a kind of flight, carrying life forward without ever needing to hurry. You settle into a time when life does not feel crowded or competitive. The world seems gently arranged, each creature fitting into its place without struggle. Balance is not something achieved through effort. It exists naturally, shaped by repetition, patience, and long familiarity with the land, the water, and the air. These animals live within ecosystems that move slowly and predictably. Seasons return in familiar patterns. Food appears in steady cycles. Nothing demands constant vigilance. Life unfolds through rhythm rather than reaction. You can imagine wide plains, quiet forests, shallow seas, and warm wetlands, all existing in quiet cooperation. Each environment supports its inhabitants without excess or scarcity. Energy flows calmly from plants to animals and back again, without sharp interruption. Animals here do not compete aggressively. They share space through timing rather than conflict. One feeds at dawn, another at dusk. Some rest while others move. Overlapping needs are resolved through habit, not force. Bodies are shaped for efficiency, not dominance. Teeth, limbs, and senses evolve to match available food and terrain precisely. Nothing is oversized or unnecessary. Form follows function gently. Movement follows familiar paths, worn smooth over generations. Trails form gradually. Migration routes repeat with little variation. The land remembers these patterns, guiding bodies without instruction. You may notice how comforting repetition feels. Nothing unexpected interrupts the flow. Predictability brings safety. Predators exist, yet their presence does not disrupt balance. They take only what is needed. Prey populations adjust gradually. Numbers rise and fall softly over time. Hunting, when it occurs, is quiet and efficient. There is no prolonged chase. Energy is conserved by both sides whenever possible. This restraint maintains harmony. Exhaustion is avoided. Injury is rare. You may sense how this careful use of energy mirrors the body's desire to rest deeply, conserving strength without awareness. Social structures remain simple. Groups are small and stable. Relationships form through proximity and routine rather than hierarchy. Communication is subtle and sufficient. Calls, gestures, or scents carry just enough information to maintain connection. Silence fills the spaces between. Territory boundaries shift slowly. Encounters are brief and often resolved without confrontation. Familiarity reduces tension. You might imagine two animals passing each other calmly, each aware, neither threatened. Reproduction follows environmental cues rather than urgency. Timing aligns with abundance. Young arrive when conditions feel supportive. Parental care focuses on consistency. Feeding, warmth, and protection are provided without excess. Growth happens steadily. As young mature, they naturally take their place within existing patterns. Nothing needs to be taught aggressively. Observation is enough. Weather changes are absorbed rather than resisted. Rain nourishes. Dry periods encourage rest. Cold brings shelter. Heat invites stillness. Adaptation happens quietly across generations. Traits that fit remain. Others fade gently. No sudden shifts disturb the balance. You may notice how this gradual change feels peaceful. Time stretches comfortably here. Animals coexist with plants in mutual support. Grazing encourages growth. Pollination spreads life. Seeds travel through digestion and movement. Nothing is wasted. Everything returns. Decomposition completes the cycle calmly. Fallen bodies nourish soil and water. Life continues without interruption. This seamless transition between living and non-living matter removes fear. Endings feel like rest rather than loss. You may feel your own thoughts loosening, no longer clinging tightly, allowing ideas to pass through. Soundscapes remain gentle, wind through leaves, water over stone. Soft calls carried briefly before fading. Silence holds equal importance. Quiet allows awareness without stimulation. Day and night alternate without conflict. Activity follows light. Rest follows darkness. Internal rhythms align naturally. A sleep comes easily in this world. Bodies rest when tired. Wakefulness returns when needed. You might sense how this permission to rest echoes within you now. Ecosystems remain resilient because nothing is pushed beyond its limits. Stress stays low. Recovery happens naturally. When disturbances occur, recovery is gradual. New growth fills gaps. Patterns re-establish themselves without intervention. These ancient systems demonstrate that stability does not require control. It arises from allowance. As your breathing remains slow, this idea settles gently. You do not need to manage every moment. Balance emerges when effort softens. Animals living this way do not measure success. Survival is quiet continuity. Being present is enough. There is no sense of progress or ambition. Life is experienced rather than evaluated. You may imagine yourself resting within such an ecosystem, supported by unseen relationships, held without effort. Nothing demands performance. Nothing needs improvement. The world simply continues. As this chapter unfolds, the idea of balance deepens. Stability is not static. It moves gently like water finding its level. You feel carried by this motion, neither rising nor falling sharply. There is nothing you need to do. Your body rests. Your mind drifts. And as these balanced lives repeat their quiet patterns, awareness begins to soften further, preparing to notice how change arrives slowly, almost imperceptibly, across the long stretch of time. As this calm balance settles into place, your thoughts begin to drift toward how even the most stable worlds change gently, without urgency, one quiet moment at a time. You drift into a time when mammals are not yet the dominant presence of the land. They exist quietly, almost in the background, shaped more by patience than by power. These early mammals do not seek attention. They adapt, adjust, and continue, living lives that unfold softly alongside larger and louder forms of life. Most of these mammals are small, light, and careful. Their bodies are designed for flexibility rather than strength. They fit into narrow spaces, beneath roots, within crevices, and under thick layers of vegetation. Safety comes from remaining unseen, from knowing when to pause and when to move gently forward. The world they inhabit is rich but calm. Forests grow slowly. Ground cover remains thick and welcoming. Nights feel long and protective. These mammals often move under cover of darkness, not because of fear, but because the environment feels quieter then, more forgiving. You can imagine soft fur brushing against leaves as a small body passes through undergrowth. Movement is cautious, but not tense. Every step is placed with awareness, guided by scent, sound, and subtle vibrations in the ground. These early mammals rely heavily on their senses. Smell becomes a primary guide, mapping the world in invisible layers. Familiar scents mark safe paths, food sources, and shelter. Unfamiliar scents invite stillness rather than alarm. Hearing develops as a quiet advantage. Ears turn slightly, catching faint movements nearby. There is no need to rush away. Awareness allows calm decisions. Vision remains gentle and close-focused. The world is experienced in details rather than distance. Shadows, textures, and shapes provide enough information to move safely. Feeding happens slowly and thoughtfully. Diets are varied and flexible, including insects, seeds, fruits, and small plants. This adaptability allows survival without dependence on any single resource. You may notice how this varied diet mirrors balance. Nothing is consumed in excess. Energy is gathered steadily without urgency. Digestion unfolds at an unhurried pace. Bodies absorb nutrients efficiently, conserving strength for movement and warmth. Rest follows feeding naturally. Sleep occupies a large portion of life. These mammals rest often, curling into protected spaces where body heat is shared with the environment. Sleep restores quietly, without interruption. As you breathe slowly, this rhythm of rest and gentle activity begins to feel familiar. Reproduction remains modest and careful. Offspring are few, allowing parents to invest time and attention without strain. Growth is gradual. Development happens in stages, guided by safety rather than speed. Young mammals stay close, learning through proximity rather than instruction. Familiar scents and sounds create a sense of security that guides early exploration. When danger appears, response is minimal. Freeze, hide, wait. Movement resumes only when the world feels calm again. This restraint conserves energy and reduces risk. Survival depends on patience more than reaction. You may sense how this approach softens the idea of survival itself. It does not require constant alertness. Awareness is enough. These mammals rarely compete directly with one another. Territories overlap gently. Encounters are brief and quiet. Familiarity reduces tension. Social structures remain simple. Some species live alone. Others form small family groups. Bonds are maintained through closeness rather than dominance. Communication stays subtle. Soft vocalizations, gentle touches, and scent markings convey enough information to maintain connection. You might imagine two small mammals passing each other calmly in the night, each aware, neither disturbed. Environmental change occurs slowly. Climate shifts unfold over long periods. These mammals adjust their habits gradually, changing activity times, shelter choices, or diets without disruption. Adaptability becomes their greatest strength. Flexibility allows continuity when conditions vary. As your thoughts drift, this quiet adaptability feels reassuring. You do not need to resist change. You can adjust gently. These early mammals often coexist near larger animals, using disturbed ground, fallen trees, or abandoned spaces as shelter. Opportunity arises without confrontation. Nothing is taken forcefully. Life unfolds through quiet openings. Body temperature regulation becomes important. Fur insulates. Behavior adapts to warmth and cold. Rest increases during harsh conditions. You may notice how this careful energy management feels deeply restful. The lifespan of these mammals may be short, yet experience feels complete. Each day contains enough. There is no sense of hurry. Generations pass quietly, carrying forward successful traits without awareness of time's scale. Evolution occurs here as a whisper rather than a declaration. Small changes accumulate slowly, shaping bodies that fit their world precisely. Fossil records of these mammals are rare. Their small bones and hidden lives leave little trace. Yet their influence continues through descendants. You may sense how invisibility does not diminish importance. Quiet presence still shapes the future. These mammals form the foundation for later diversity. Their adaptability allows expansion when opportunities arise, but for now, they remain content within their niche. As the landscape remains calm, their lives continue without interruption. Day follows night. Seasons return. There is no expectation of progress. Existence itself is enough. You may imagine yourself resting among them now, small and protected, surrounded by familiar scents and gentle sounds. There is nothing you need to do, nothing you need to achieve. Breathing remains slow. Muscles soften naturally. The world feels steady. As this chapter settles, the quiet resilience of these early mammals lingers, preparing the way for noticing how even gentle lives eventually fade and transform, leaving space for what comes next. And as these rare mammals continue their soft, unnoticed lives, your awareness begins to drift toward how change arrives quietly, carrying life forward without ever asking it to hurry. You arrive gently at a moment where nothing ends suddenly. Extinction here does not feel like collapse or chaos. It feels like a slow thinning, a quiet fading that unfolds over long stretches of time. Life does not vanish in a single breath. It loosens its grip gradually, step by step, as conditions change and rhythms shift. In this world, environments are never fixed. Climate moves slowly, coastlines drift, forests expand and retreat. With each gentle change, some lives adjust easily, while others find the fit becoming less comfortable. There is no failure in this, only transition. You may imagine a species becoming slightly less common with each generation. Fewer nests appear. Familiar calls sound less often. Absence grows quietly, without announcement. Nothing breaks, nothing panics. Food sources change subtly. Plants respond to new temperatures or rainfall patterns. Insects follow different cycles. Animals adapt where they can, altering diets, movement, or timing. For some, these small adjustments are enough. For others, the gap widens slowly. Extinction here is not punishment. It is not the result of weakness. It is simply the outcome of long-term mismatch between body and environment. When conditions drift beyond what a form can support, continuation becomes difficult. You might notice how calm this explanation feels. There is no urgency, no moral weight. Life responds to change without judgment. Generations grow slightly smaller. Reproduction becomes less frequent. Young survive less often, not because of danger, but because balance shifts gently away from abundance. Habitats become quieter. Spaces once occupied remain empty for long periods. Nature does not rush to fill them. Silence is allowed. You may sense how this quiet absence feels similar to a thought that no longer returns. It fades without struggle. Fossil records preserve these transitions imperfectly. Gaps appear where life once existed. Layers of stone hold no drama, only evidence of gradual change. Extinction often takes thousands of years. During that time, life continues around it uninterrupted. Rivers flow, seasons repeat. Other species persist without awareness of what is fading nearby. There is no moment when the last individual knows it is the last. Life ends as it always has, within ordinary days and nights. This lack of awareness removes fear from the process. Existence remains complete within each moment lived. You might imagine an animal resting one final time, unaware that its kind will not return. There is no sense of loss in that moment, only rest. Energy once carried by that species does not disappear. It shifts. Nutrients return to soil or water. Other lives absorb what remains. Continuity persists. Nature does not pause to mourn. It continues gently, adjusting its balance without force. As you breathe slowly, this idea may feel unexpectedly comforting. Endings do not require struggle. Sometimes extinction opens space for new forms to emerge. This is not replacement, but rebalancing. Different bodies explore available niches over time. Change does not hurry. It waits until conditions allow something new to settle. You may notice how patience defines every step. Nothing is rushed. Extinction can also occur through isolation. Populations become separated. Numbers decline slowly. Diversity narrows gently. Without sudden disruption, this narrowing feels quiet rather than alarming. Small populations persist for long periods, maintaining presence even as numbers remain low. Life holds on calmly until it no longer can. There is dignity in this persistence. No effort is wasted. You might sense how this mirrors human experience, where some habits or ways of being fade naturally as circumstances change. Nothing needs to be forced away. It simply becomes less necessary. Extinction does not erase impact. Even vanished species leave traces in ecosystems, shaping soil, plants, and other animals long after they are gone. Their influence remains embedded in the world. You may imagine landscapes still shaped by movements that no longer occur, like paths slowly softening under weather. Memory persists without consciousness. Scientific understanding of extinction grows slowly as well. Knowledge accumulates through careful observation rather than sudden discovery. There is no single moment of realization. Awareness deepens gradually. As you listen, the idea of gradual understanding feels restful. You do not need immediate clarity. Extinction reminds us that life is temporary without being fragile. It can endure for immense spans of time, then release quietly. This release is not failure. It is part of continuity. You may feel your body relaxing as the need to hold on loosens. Nothing here demands resistance. The world continues to feel wide and accommodating. As this chapter settles, extinction becomes less a story of loss and more a story of flow. Life enters, adapts, and eventually drifts away, leaving space behind. There is no blame, no urgency, only transition. And as this gentle fading becomes part of the larger rhythm, your thoughts begin to drift toward what remains afterward, quietly shaping the world without ever needing to announce itself. As the last traces of these lives soften into the background of time, your awareness begins to turn toward how continuity itself carries on, calm and unbroken, into whatever comes next. You move gently into a stretch of time where change does not feel active or deliberate. Adaptation here is not something animals work toward. It happens quietly, almost unnoticed, carried forward by countless small moments that feel ordinary while they occur. Life adjusts not through effort, but through rest, repetition, and patience. Ancient animals live within environments that shift slowly. Temperatures drift, rainfall patterns soften or deepen. Vegetation changes its rhythm. These movements are subtle enough that no single generation experiences them as dramatic. Bodies continue to live as they always have, responding only to what is present. Over long periods, small differences begin to matter. A slightly thicker coat offers warmth. A slightly broader tooth handles tougher plants. A slightly different limb angle supports steady movement across changing ground. None of these differences are chosen. They simply remain. Now, you may imagine time flowing like a wide river, carrying these traits forward without urgency. Nothing needs to hurry. What fits continues. What fits less gently fades. Adaptation unfolds while animals sleep, eat, and rest. It does not require awareness. There is no moment of realization, no decision to change direction. Life continues, and change arrives quietly within it. Bodies remain comfortable within their world for most of their existence. Stress is not constant. Survival does not demand struggle every day. Instead, it depends on consistency and balance. You might notice how soothing this idea feels. Change does not have to feel difficult. It can occur without effort. Generations overlap smoothly. Parents resemble their young closely. Differences are small enough to feel invisible. Yet over deep time, these differences accumulate, shaping forms that suit new conditions. Limbs lengthen or shorten gradually. Fur patterns shift softly. Sensory abilities adjust to new light, sound, or scent environments. Everything remains familiar, even as it slowly becomes different. You may imagine watching a landscape through thick glass, where movement appears softened and continuous. Nothing jumps abruptly from one state to another. Adaptation also works through behavior. Feeding times shift, shelter choices change, activity patterns follow temperature or light. These behaviors pass naturally through example rather than instruction. Young learn simply by being present. They adopt what works because it feels comfortable and safe. This gentle inheritance removes urgency. There is no pressure to improve quickly. As your breathing stays slow, this pace of change begins to feel restful. Nothing is expected all at once. Adaptation often happens through narrowing rather than expansion. Animals become more specialized, fitting their environment precisely. This precision increases efficiency and reduces wasted energy. However, specialization arrives slowly. It never feels limiting to those experiencing it. It feels like belonging. You may sense how belonging brings calm. When form and environment align, effort decreases. Some adaptations favor stillness. Camouflage improves. Burrowing becomes deeper. Nocturnal activity increases. These changes encourage rest during challenging conditions. Other adaptations favor gentle movement. Endurance improves. Balance becomes steadier. Motion requires less energy. All of this unfolds without awareness. Animals live their lives fully, never knowing they are changing. Extinction and adaptation exist side by side. Some lines continue adjusting. Others gradually lose alignment. Neither path carries blame. You might notice how neutral this process feels. Nature does not judge outcomes. It simply responds. Adaptation does not aim toward progress. It aims toward fit. What works now remains. What works less slowly fades. This lack of direction removes pressure. There is no finish line. Fossil records capture only glimpses of these transitions. Layers of stone show gradual shifts rather than sudden replacements. Change appears as a soft blur across time. Scientists piece together these stories slowly, observing patterns rather than moments. Understanding grows gently, like familiarity with a place visited often. You may feel how comforting this approach is. Knowing does not require urgency. Adaptation also preserves much of what already works. Core body plans remain stable for long periods. Change adds rather than replaces. This continuity provides stability across ages. Life feels reliable. As environments fluctuate, adaptability becomes a quiet advantage. Flexibility allows persistence without strain. You might imagine ancient animals resting within this flow, unaware of future forms, content within present conditions. There is no need to prepare for what comes next. Life meets it when it arrives. Your body may relax further as this idea settles. You do not need to anticipate every change. Time carries adjustments forward gently. Adaptation reminds us that effort is not always required for growth. Sometimes allowing time to pass is enough. You may sense how deeply this aligns with rest itself. Healing and adjustment often happen while doing nothing at all. As the chapter continues, adaptation feels less like movement and more like stillness shaped by time. Nothing here rushes, nothing resists. The world continues softly, carrying forms forward until they no longer fit, then making space quietly. You remain held within this slow motion, supported by the idea that change does not need to be forced. As thoughts drift, awareness loosens its grip. The future feels distant and gentle. And as long adaptations stretch across ages, your attention begins to turn toward how time itself becomes a companion, guiding life without ever needing to be noticed. As these slow changes settle into the background of deep time, and your thoughts drift gently toward how patience itself shapes what endures, quietly and without effort. You enter a quiet stretch of deep time, where some lives pass more softly than others. These animals exist for what feels like a brief moment on the vast timeline of Earth. Their presence is not dramatic, not emphasized, and not prolonged. It is gentle, complete, and unhurried, lasting exactly as long as it needs to. In this chapter, time does not rush, even when lives are short. A species may appear, live, and fade across a span that feels fleeting when viewed from far away. Yet within that span, every moment unfolds fully. Nothing is compressed, nothing is missed. You can imagine an ancient landscape slowly changing its colors and textures. Within it, a rare animal lives quietly, unaware that its kind will not persist far into the future. It does not experience its life as brief. It experiences only the present. These creatures eat, rest, move, and reproduce within stable rhythms. Days follow nights, seasons return. Life feels continuous and whole from the inside. Some of these animals arise during narrow windows of environmental balance. Conditions align just enough for them to exist comfortably. Temperature, vegetation, and available space meet their needs precisely. You may notice how specific this alignment feels, like a moment of perfect stillness where everything fits together naturally. When conditions drift slightly, these creatures do not struggle to remain. They continue until the fit loosens, then they gradually disappear. There is no resistance, only transition. Their bodies are often specialized, suited closely to their environment. This closeness brings a comfort rather than limitation. While it lasts, life feels easy. Movement remains efficient and calm. Feeding patterns repeat gently. Shelters provide protection without effort. You may imagine one of these animals resting often, unburdened by the need to adapt rapidly or compete aggressively. Reproduction occurs naturally within this brief span. Offspring resemble parents closely. Generations pass without awareness of their limited future. There is no urgency to multiply quickly, balance governs numbers. Enough is always enough. As you listen, the idea of enough may feel soothing. Not everything needs to expand endlessly. Some of these creatures leave only faint traces in the fossil record. Their bones are rare. Their footprints vanish. Evidence appears briefly, then fades. Yet their presence mattered fully while it existed. Ecosystems adjusted around them. Energy flowed through them. Life included them completely. Nothing about their existence is incomplete. You might notice how this challenges the idea that duration defines value. Length does not determine meaning. These brief lives remind us that completeness does not require permanence. Environmental change continues quietly. Slight shifts in climate or geography move beyond what these animals can accommodate. The gap widens slowly. Population numbers decrease gently. Encounters become less frequent. Silence grows without drama. You may sense how this fading resembles the way a sound slowly dissolves into quiet, rather than stopping abruptly. There is no final moment marked by awareness. The last individuals live ordinary days. Life feels normal until it ends. This ordinariness removes fear from the idea of disappearance. Nature does not pause to acknowledge the passing. It continues its rhythms uninterrupted. Energy returns to soil and water. Other lives absorb what remains. Flow persists. You may feel how peaceful this process feels when stripped of urgency. Some brief-lived species influence later forms indirectly. Their traits may reappear elsewhere, echoed in distant relatives or similar adaptations. Even short presences can shape what follows. You might imagine ripples spreading gently across a still surface, fading slowly, yet touching everything nearby. These animals do not vanish without connection. They are woven into the larger fabric of life. Scientific understanding of such brief species grows slowly. Gaps in the record invite patience rather than frustration. Knowledge itself adapts to absence, learning to accept what cannot be fully known. You may notice how this acceptance feels restful. Not everything needs explanation. Creatures known only briefly remind us that the story of life is not written in bold lines. It is written in soft passages, some long, some short. Time does not favor one over the other. From within the flow, every life is lived fully. As your breathing remains slow, the idea of fleeting completeness may settle gently. You do not need to last forever to be whole. Rest does not depend on duration. These brief lives allow space for others to arrive. Change continues without conflict. Nature holds no regret. It simply moves on quietly. You may feel how this perspective loosens the grip on permanence. Nothing here is wasted. As the chapter unfolds, the fleeting presence of these creatures becomes a lesson in gentleness rather than loss. Life arrives, life rests, life departs, all within calm rhythm. You remain held within this understanding, free from urgency, free from expectation. And as awareness softens, thoughts drift toward how even the shortest stories can be complete, inviting rest rather than concern. As these gentle, fleeting lives fade quietly into deep time, your thoughts begin to drift toward how completeness can exist in every moment, no matter how briefly it passes. You settle into a landscape that feels complete without being crowded. Here, ecosystems exist as calm networks, shaped by long familiarity rather than urgency. Every element fits gently into place, including the rare animals who move through these environments quietly, never drawing attention, yet always belonging. In these ecosystems, nothing works alone. Plants, animals, water, soil, and air interact in slow, steady exchanges. Energy passes from one form to another without haste. Rare animals take part in this flow without needing to dominate it. You may imagine a forest where light filters softly through layered leaves. Beneath the canopy, life unfolds at different levels, each supporting the others. Some creatures are common and visible, others are rare and hidden, yet their presence matters just as deeply. Rare animals often occupy narrow roles within these systems. They may feed on a specific plant, disperse certain seeds, or regulate a small population of insects. Their contributions are precise rather than broad. Because their roles are focused, these animals do not need to be numerous. Balance does not require abundance, it requires fit. You might notice how this idea softens the meaning of importance. Influence does not depend on size or visibility. Movement within these ecosystems remains gentle. Paths form gradually through repetition. No single journey changes the landscape quickly. Trails soften rather than scar. Sounds remain low and layered. A distant call, leaves shifting, water moving slowly over stone. Silence fills the spaces between, allowing awareness without stimulation. Rare animals often move during quiet hours. Dawn, dusk, or night provide calm windows where activity feels safe and unhurried. The world seems to pause slightly during these times. You may imagine a rare creature stepping lightly through grass and leaving no trace behind. Its passage alters nothing visibly, yet it participates fully in the rhythm of the place. Feeding patterns are careful and consistent. Diets may be limited, but they align perfectly with available resources. Nothing is taken excessively. Nothing is wasted. Plants respond slowly to grazing or browsing, often benefiting from it. Growth patterns adjust gently. Balance remains intact. These ecosystems recover naturally from small disturbances. Fallen trees become shelter. Flooded areas nourish soil. Fire clears space gradually. Rare animals adjust without panic. You might sense how resilience here comes from flexibility rather than strength. Social interactions among rare animals are often minimal. Many live alone or in small groups. Encounters are brief and non-confrontational. Communication stays subtle. Scents, soft sounds, or visual cues convey enough information to maintain distance or connection when needed. This quiet communication preserves calm. Nothing escalates. Predators and prey exist within understanding rather than conflict. Timing reduces overlap. Awareness prevents unnecessary encounters. You may feel how this mutual awareness feels peaceful. Not every meeting requires response. Rare animals often depend on stable conditions. Their sensitivity makes them indicators of ecosystem health. When balance holds, they persist quietly. When conditions drift, they may fade gradually. Their absence signals change rather than failure. This signaling occurs without alarm. The ecosystem responds over time, adjusting its patterns. You might notice how this gentle feedback loop feels intelligent without being deliberate. Water flows play an essential role here. Streams, wetlands, and underground channels move nutrients slowly. Rare animals rely on these steady sources rather than sudden abundance. Seasonal changes remain predictable. Rain arrives when expected. Dry periods encourage rest. Cold slows movement. Heat invites stillness. These cycles reduce stress. Life anticipates rather than reacts. Rare animals often have longer lifespans or slower reproduction. This pace aligns with environmental stability. Growth is measured. Change is gradual. You may sense how this slowness invites rest. Nothing demands acceleration. Habitats are often complex and layered. Microclimates exist within small spaces. Shade, moisture, and temperature vary subtly, offering refuge. Rare animals learn these spaces intimately. Familiarity guides movement more than exploration. This deep familiarity reduces risk. Known paths feel safe. You might imagine resting within such a place, knowing exactly where to go without thinking. Ecosystems like these do not seek expansion. They maintain equilibrium. Boundaries shift slowly over time. Rare animals contribute to this stability by occupying spaces others do not. They fill quiet niches that prevent imbalance. Their absence can leave subtle gaps. Other species may adjust, but the change remains noticeable to those who observe carefully. You may notice how this attentiveness feels calming. Awareness replaces urgency. Fossil and ecological records show that such ecosystems persist for long periods when left undisturbed. Their longevity arises from restraint. Nothing pushes beyond capacity. Nothing grows unchecked. You might sense how this restraint feels deeply restful, like the body settling into a comfortable position. Rare animals do not compete for dominance. They coexist through spacing, timing, and tolerance. Territories overlap gently. Boundaries remain flexible. You may imagine two rare animals passing through the same area at different times, each unaware of the other, yet sharing the space peacefully. These ecosystems allow absence as much as presence. Empty spaces matter. Silence matters. Life does not need to fill every gap. You may feel how this permission for emptiness allows the mind to rest. Scientific study of such ecosystems requires patience. Patterns reveal themselves slowly. Understanding grows through observation rather than intervention. Knowledge deepens by watching what remains unchanged. You might notice how comforting this approach feels. There is no need to force insight. Rare animals remind us that stability does not mean stagnation. Change occurs gently within balance. Time passes without disruption. As this chapter unfolds, the idea of quiet ecosystems settles into awareness. Life thrives not through competition, but through fit. You remain held within this calm network, supported without effort. Breathing stays slow. Muscles soften. There is nothing you need to do. As attention drifts, you begin to sense how even quiet systems carry the seeds of change, preparing gently for whatever follows next. And as these calm ecosystems continue their quiet work, your thoughts drift toward how even the softest presences shape what comes after, without ever needing to hurry. You arrive in a quieter place now, where movement has slowed even further. Here, attention turns not to living bodies, but to what remains after they have gently passed from the world. Nothing here feels abandoned. Absence does not feel empty. It feels settled, like a room after someone has left it in good order. When animals fade from the landscape, the world does not lose its shape. Traces remain, held softly in stone, soil, and water. Fossils form slowly, without intention, as layers of sediment gather patiently over what once lived. Pressure increases over time, not suddenly, and memory becomes physical. Bones, shells, and impressions are not records created for remembrance. They are natural outcomes of stillness. Mineral-rich water moves through buried remains, replacing organic matter grain by grain. Change happens quietly, long after life has ended, without awareness or effort. You may imagine layers of earth settling gently, one upon another, are like blankets laid carefully over time. Each layer carries a hint of what came before, even if no one is there to notice. Not all traces are visible. Some remain only as chemical signatures, slight differences in rock composition, or subtle patterns in soil. These signs are quiet and easily overlooked, yet they speak of presence without sound. Landscapes themselves remember. River paths curve around old structures. Hills form where roots once held soil in place. Valleys deepen where repeated movement once occurred. The world carries these shapes forward calmly. You might notice how comforting this idea feels. Nothing truly disappears. It simply changes form. Footprints vanish quickly, yet the paths they create often remain. Trails become easier to walk, channels easier to flow through. Movement leaves softness behind rather than scars. Even feeding leaves traces. Grazed plants grow differently. Soil composition shifts. Nutrient cycles adjust. These changes persist gently, supporting other life. When a rare animal is gone, its absence does not cause collapse. Space opens slowly. Other species adjust their timing or movement. Balance reshapes itself without urgency. You may sense how peaceful this process feels. Nature does not rush to replace. It allows quiet gaps to exist. Silence itself becomes a trace. A sound no longer heard creates a different soundscape. The world feels more open, more spacious. Stillness deepens. Absence can feel like rest. Fossil beds often form in calm environments. Shallow seas, quiet lakes, slow-moving floodplains. Places where disturbance is rare allow preservation. Still water holds memory better than rushing currents. You might imagine fine sediment settling through clear water, covering remains gently, never disturbing their position. Time does the work slowly. Discovery, when it happens, is also quiet. A stone splits, a shape appears. Recognition arrives gradually. Nothing announces itself loudly. Scientific understanding grows in the same way. Patterns emerge through patience. Gaps remain without frustration. Not everything needs to be found. You may notice how this patience feels soothing. Knowing is not urgent. Some traces exist only indirectly. Changes in pollen layers reveal plants that once grew. Isotopes in ice or rock hint at climates that supported certain lives. Evidence is subtle, like a memory felt rather than seen. These indirect signs are enough. They do not demand full reconstruction. Absence also allows new quiet spaces to form. The clearings remain open longer. Water flows differently. Light reaches new areas. Opportunity arises softly. You might sense how endings create gentleness rather than loss. Remains continue to interact with the living world. Fossils weather slowly, releasing minerals back into soil. Stones erode, carrying fragments downstream. Memory feeds the present. Nothing is held permanently. Everything returns eventually. You may imagine a fossil exposed briefly by erosion, then covered again by wind or water. Presence and absence alternate without drama. Human understanding often frames absence as loss, but here it feels more like completion. A chapter finished, a sentence ending naturally. The world does not grieve, it rests. As your breathing remains slow, the idea of peaceful absence may settle deeply. You do not need to fill every space with thought. Silence holds meaning without explanation. Some remains never fossilize. Soft bodies dissolve entirely, yet even these leave influence. They shape nutrient flows, microbial communities, and future growth. Nothing is wasted. Even disappearance contributes. You might feel how reassuring this is. Letting go does not mean erasing impact. Over deep time, layers accumulate. Older traces sink deeper. New surfaces form above. Memory stacks gently, never competing for attention. You may imagine resting atop countless histories, supported without knowing their details. Earth holds these layers effortlessly. When landscapes change dramatically, such as through uplift or erosion, buried traces resurface. What was hidden becomes visible again, briefly. This reappearance feels like a quiet reminder rather than a revelation. Understanding returns in cycles. You may sense how this mirrors thought itself. Memories rise and fall without effort. Absence also shapes behavior. Animals adjust routes. Plants spread into new spaces. Life reorganizes calmly. Nothing rushes to claim what is left behind. Balance emerges slowly. The idea of absence as peaceful space may invite your own mind to release what no longer needs holding. There is nothing you need to remember. Fossils, sediments, and subtle changes carry enough. As night deepens, attention grows softer. Details blur. Shapes remain without edges. The world feels wide and quiet. You remain here, supported by layers of time, held gently by what has come and gone. As this chapter settles, absence no longer feels like emptiness. It feels like calm continuation. Something has ended, and something else has already begun, without noise. And as these quiet traces rest within the earth, your thoughts begin to drift toward how even what is no longer seen continues to support what gently follows after. You return now to a wide and gentle perspective, where the long journey of ancient animals settles into something quieter than knowledge. Here, life is no longer something to examine closely. It becomes a feeling of presence, spread softly across time, like warmth held in stone long after the sun has moved on. Ancient animals no longer appear as separate figures. They blend into the land, the water, and the air that once carried them. Their movements, their pauses, their slow adjustments have become part of Earth's memory itself. Nothing stands out sharply. Everything belongs. You may sense how this widening view allows effort to fall away. There is no need to track changes or remember sequences. The story has already unfolded. What remains is calm continuity. Earth holds memory without effort. Layers of rock settle quietly. Sediment presses gently downward. Temperature and pressure work slowly, never forcing, never rushing. Time does the shaping without announcing itself. In this memory, ancient animals are not frozen moments. They are impressions, like footsteps softened by weather. Their presence shaped soil, water, and other lives in subtle ways that continue long after they are gone. You might imagine the ground beneath you as deeply layered, carrying countless lives within it, each resting without conflict. Nothing competes for space. Everything fits naturally. This memory does not cling to detail. It does not preserve names or forms with precision. It holds only what is needed to continue the flow. Exactness is unnecessary. You may feel how comforting this is. You do not need to remember everything to be complete. The earth remembers through balance. Nutrients cycle calmly. Energy moves from one form to another without interruption. What once lived feeds what lives now, without distinction. Ancient animals rest within this cycle, not as losses, but as quiet contributors. Their bodies return gently to the systems that sustained them. You may sense how this return feels like rest rather than disappearance. Over long stretches of time, landscapes change their shape slowly. Mountains rise and soften. Rivers wander. sees advance and retreat. Memory adjusts without resistance. Nothing insists on remaining the same. Ancient animals existed within these slow changes, adapting where possible, fading where not. Their patience mirrors the patience of the land itself. You may notice how patience here feels effortless. It is not practiced, it simply exists. As your breathing remains slow, the idea of being held by something vast and unhurried may settle deeply. There is nothing you need to manage. Earth's memory does not judge which lives mattered more. All were part of the same quiet experiment. Presence was enough. This neutrality brings peace. No life needs justification. Scientific understanding may label eras and transitions, but Earth itself does not divide its story sharply. Time flows continuously, smoothing edges. You may imagine standing at a shoreline where water meets land, unable to tell exactly where one ends and the other begins. Ancient animals rest within this boundary, neither separate nor distinct. Memory here feels like a deep hum rather than a collection of facts. It is sensed rather than known. You might notice how this hum aligns with the rhythm of your own breathing, steady and unforced. There is no urgency in this place. Nothing is approaching. Nothing is falling behind. The idea of progress dissolves. What remains is continuation. Earth carries forward quietly, making space as needed, never crowded, never empty. Ancient animals become symbols not of the past, but of belonging. They remind us that existing within time is enough. You may feel how this thought loosens the need to hold onto meaning. Learning fades gently here. Facts soften into impressions. Curiosity relaxes into acceptance. You are not expected to remember what came before. The world already remembers for you. Your body may feel heavier now, as if resting more fully. Muscles release without instruction. Thoughts slow, spacing themselves out naturally. Earth's long memory continues beneath you, steady and reliable. Even now, new lives unfold quietly, just as ancient ones once did. Some will last long, others will be brief, all will be complete. You may sense how this removes pressure from duration. Length does not determine worth. The night feels wide around you. Sound softens. Awareness drifts without effort. Ancient animals no longer feel distant. They feel like companions resting nearby, sharing the same stillness. There is no separation between then and now, only layers resting together. You might imagine yourself settling into this memory, becoming another quiet layer, held gently without expectation. Breathing deepens. The body knows how to rest. And now, as the journey draws softly to a close, the world feels wide and still. As this journey gently comes to a close, notice how wide and still the world feels. So many lives unfolding quietly, whether we see them or not. You don't need to keep their names or stories. They've already done their work. If you enjoy these slow explorations, you can support the channel in any small way that feels natural, so others can find this calm too. But right now, there is nothing to decide and nowhere to go. Let your thoughts soften, your muscles relax, and the night carry you onward, one peaceful breath at a time. And as Earth's long memory holds everything gently in place, you drift onward, resting within the quiet certainty that nothing is lost and nothing is required.